The galaxy was full of light and sound, but on this night, something unusual happened. Across dozens of alien worlds, people were watching their regular entertainment shows. Alien singers, dancers, and hologram actors filled the screens as they had for years, but suddenly, without warning, the signal changed. The screen flickered once, twice, and then a new image appeared. It was not an alien face. It was human. The man had short dark hair, warm skin, and eyes that looked straight into the camera with confidence. He smiled in a way that felt dangerous, yet inviting. His name was Ethan Cole, though no one out in the galaxy knew him yet. On Earth, he was performing his regular show, never realizing the signal had been hijacked. But the hijack wasn't from Earth. It came from deep space. Someone, or something, was broadcasting his show to millions of alien viewers. In the alien city of Vorthis Prime, inside a glass-walled cafe, a group of scaled beings froze as they watched the screen. One dropped his drink, the purple liquid splashing on the floor. On the ocean world of Drelka, a crowd of tall, blue-skinned women stopped singing when Ethan's image appeared above the waves. Even in the frozen colonies of the outer belt, miners took off their helmets and stared at the small hologram projectors. Everywhere, aliens were silent, their eyes locked on the human performer. Ethan's voice was warm, confident, and strangely hypnotic. His movements were smooth, his body language bold and unlike anything alien audiences had seen. Some aliens whispered to each other, asking, "What species is this?" Others leaned forward, not wanting to miss a second. For some, it was pure fascination. For others, it was shock, even offense. In the golden halls of the Intergalactic Council, high-ranking leaders watched with narrowed eyes. This human, one of them said slowly, may be dangerous, back on Earth. Ethan had no idea. To him, it was just another night. He had been an entertainer for years, struggling for recognition. He never imagined he would find fame beyond his own planet. The stage lights warmed his skin, the music pulsed through the air, and the crowd in front of him cheered. He gave them his best performance, unaware that far away, in hundreds of alien cities, his show was becoming the talk of the galaxy. In a dimly lit control room orbiting a star called Rin 5, a single figure sat at a console. Her long fingers danced over glowing panels. She wore a dark hood, hiding her face from the security cameras. Her name was Karail, and she was the one who had hacked into the broadcast network. She had seen humans before, but never like this. Ethan's energy, his confidence, and his strange human style had captured her attention instantly. She wanted the galaxy to see him, to feel what she felt, and she knew it would cause chaos. A small smile curved her lips. Yes, she whispered to herself, let them see the human. Across alien communication networks, the reaction was explosive. Some praised the performance, calling it raw and alive. Others accused the unknown human of spreading indecency and chaos. Debates erupted on live broadcasts. Young aliens began imitating Ethan's moves, recording themselves and sharing them across planets. Merchants started selling clothes that looked like his. And deep within the Intergalactic Council, a decision was being made. This human's influence must be controlled, said one council member. Or removed, added another. They voted to send investigators to find the human and bring him to the council, but not everyone agreed. Carol, who sat in the shadows of the meeting chamber, listened quietly. She had no intention of letting them control Ethan, not yet. Meanwhile, Ethan noticed something strange. After his performance, he checked his messages. There were hundreds. At first, he thought they were from fans on Earth, but the text was strange, full of symbols and characters he didn't recognize. One message, however, stood out. It was translated into English and said, "They are watching you. Human, and not all of them like what they see." Ethan frowned, unsure if it was a joke or some weird prank. He ignored it, for now, far away. In a secret meeting room on the planet Vorthis Prime, a group of alien enforcers gathered. Their leader, a tall, insect-like being with sharp mandibles slammed a claw on the table. "This human is a threat to our cultural stability," he declared. "Find him, silence him, and erase his presence from the networks." The others nodded, their eyes glowing in agreement. But in another part of the galaxy, Carell was already making her move. She had traced Ethan's location to Earth, and she knew the enforcers would arrive soon. She activated her ship, a sleek silver craft hidden in the rings of a dead planet. Her mission was clear: reach Ethan first, because whether he knew it or not, he had just become the most wanted human in the galaxy, and for Ethan Cole. The broadcast that started, all was only the beginning. The night was quiet in Ethan's apartment. The city outside glowed with streetlights. Cars moved slowly below, and the faint hum of neon signs filled the air. Ethan sat on his couch, still wearing the jacket from his performance earlier. He scrolled through his messages again. There were more now, strange symbols, alien characters, glowing letters that seemed to shift and move on their own. Some made no sense at all, but a few were translated. One read, "They are coming for you, human," another said. "Do not trust the ones in silver." Ethan shook his head and laughed to himself, thinking it was some internet prank. Then the lights flickered, first once, then twice. The hum of the neon outside grew louder. His phone screen went black. A deep vibration rolled through the air, rattling the glass on his table. Ethan stood up, confused. That was when he saw it, through his window. A light brighter than the moon appeared above the city skyline. It wasn't a helicopter. It wasn't a plane. It was smooth, silver, and silent. It moved closer without making a sound, hovering over the rooftops. A beam of pale blue light shot down from beneath it, scanning the buildings. When the beam touched Ethan's apartment, the lights inside went completely out. The walls seemed to hum, the air grew warm, and then a figure appeared in the middle of his living room. She was tall, taller than any human woman Ethan had ever seen. Her skin shimmered faintly like it was made of starlight. Her eyes were wide and silver, reflecting every light in the room. Her hair was long and dark, yet moved like it was floating underwater. She wore a thin metallic suit that seemed alive, adjusting itself as she moved. Ethan froze. His first instinct was to reach for his phone. But the screen was still dead. The woman raised her hand slowly, palm open. "Do not be afraid." "Ethan Cole," she said, her voice calm but carrying a strange echo. Ethan stared at her, unsure whether to run, shout, or ask how she knew his name. What are you?" he finally asked. "My name is Carell," she replied. "I am not from your world." Ethan laughed nervously. "You think?" he said, trying to hide his fear. Carell tilted her head, studying him like a scientist would study a rare animal. "You have become important," she said softly. "Your image, your performance has reached worlds far beyond this one." Ethan blinked. "You mean my show?" "Yes," she said, her eyes flashing briefly. "And many have seen it, more than you can imagine." She stepped closer. Somehow, the air around her felt heavier, as if space itself bent when she moved. "There are those who wish to celebrate you," she continued. "And there are those who wish to erase you." Ethan felt his chest tighten. "You're talking about aliens," he said quietly. Carell didn't answer directly. Instead, she glanced toward the window, her expression suddenly tense. "They are already here," she whispered. Before Ethan could ask what she meant, a loud crack echoed from outside. Bright silver lights swept across the city streets, scanning every building. Carell's voice turned sharp. "We have to leave now." Ethan took a step back. "Leave? Where?" "Off this planet," she said simply. Her words hit him like a punch. He wasn't ready to believe her, but the look in her eyes told him this was no joke. Carell touched a device on her wrist. The air shimmered beside them, and a glowing doorway appeared. Through it, Ethan could see a dark, metallic chamber, a ship's interior. "You have two choices," she said. "Come with me and live, or stay here and meet the enforcers." Ethan's mind raced. What happens "If I stay?" he asked. "They will silence you," she said, "and your people will never know why." Outside, a deep mechanical hum shook the air. Shadows moved against the walls as something large descended toward his building. Kirill stepped halfway through the glowing doorway, looking back at him. "This is your only chance," she said, her voice low. Ethan hesitated for only a moment before he grabbed his bag and ran toward her. The doorway closed behind them with a flash, and in the next instant, they were inside Kirill's ship. The walls were smooth and silver, glowing with faint blue lines. Ethan's head spun as he tried to understand what just happened. Kirill moved quickly to a control panel, her fingers flying over the controls. Through the viewing window, Ethan saw the city falling away beneath them. A massive silver craft hovered over his apartment building, and then fired a beam of red light straight into it. The blast shook the ground and sent debris flying into the streets. Ethan's eyes widened. "They were going to kill me," he whispered. Kirill glanced at him and said quietly, "They still will, unless we stay ahead of them." The ship turned sharply, heading toward the stars. Ethan sat down hard in the seat beside her, still trying to breathe normally. "Why are you helping me?" he asked finally. Kirill didn't look at him. Instead, she kept her gaze on the endless darkness ahead. "Because," she said, "you have no idea what you've started." The news of Ethan Cole's performance spread through the galaxy like wildfire, from the burning deserts of Zrin to the floating crystal cities of Halora. Alien screens replayed his every move. Some saw art, others saw danger, but no one could ignore him on one planet. Alien shopkeepers hung holographic posters of Ethan outside their stores. On another, religious leaders condemned his human influence, warning their people to avoid him. The galaxy had seen humans before, diplomats, soldiers, traitors, but never like this. Never a human who captured attention through performance, style, and raw presence. In the neon-lit districts of Vorthis Prime, alien youths gathered in underground clubs. They dressed like Ethan, moved like Ethan, and even spoke human words they didn't understand. His style became a quiet rebellion, a way for the younger generation to reject the rules of the older ones. But in the marble chambers of the Intergalactic Council, there was no celebration. The leaders of dozens of species gathered around a long, circular table. A giant hologram of Ethan played in the center, showing his smile, his movements, his voice. One council member, a tall insectoid with translucent wings, slammed his claw on the table. "This is unacceptable," he hissed. "Human culture must remain on Earth. We cannot allow it to spread." Another, a sleek, silver-skinned being, replied coldly, "Agreed, this human threatens the balance of our worlds." But a voice from the far end of the table spoke up. It was Kirill, hidden behind the shadowed hood she always wore. "I disagree," she said, her voice calm but firm. "This is not a threat. This is connection. The galaxy needs more of it." Her words were ignored by most. The council voted to send the Zerran enforcers, elite hunters who were feared across the stars. Their mission was simple: capture Ethan Cole and erase his influence from the networks. The vote passed, but not without tension. Some council members avoided looking at Kirill, knowing she had once been part of the enforcers herself. If she was defending Ethan, there had to be a reason. Meanwhile, Ethan sat inside Kirill's sleek ship, staring at the endless starfield outside. He had never been in space before. Every star felt close enough to touch, every planet a mystery. Kirill stood at the controls, monitoring a web of glowing symbols. Ethan broke the silence. "So, the whole galaxy saw me?" Kirill's silver eyes met his. "Yes, and it's not just the council you have to worry about. There are others who see you as a symbol." "A symbol of what?" he asked. "Freedom," she replied simply, "on the moon world of Claris." A secret meeting took place in a dim underground hall. A mix of alien rebels sat around a rough table, passing a hologram of Ethan's performance between them. "This is it," one said. "This human proves the Council can't control what we watch or how we live." In the shadows, a hooded figure listened, a spy for the Zyran enforcers. He sent a message immediately. "The human is inspiring unrest. Orders?" The reply came quickly. "End it before it spreads further." Kirill's ship passed through a region of space lit by the glow of a dying star. Ethan sat with his head in his hands, trying to process everything. He didn't ask for this. He didn't want to be a political weapon or a symbol in a galactic fight, but deep down, there was a spark of curiosity, a part of him that wanted to see just how far this could go. Kirill studied him quietly. "You're thinking about staying." "Hidden," she said. "But that will not work. They will find you anywhere on Earth." Ethan looked at her sharply. "So what's the plan?" Kirill's lips curved slightly. "The plan is to turn the galaxy's eyes in your favor before they can destroy you." Far across space, on a lush green planet named Pharaohs, the enforcers gathered, tall, armored beings with glowing eyes lined up as their leader spoke. "The human has influence," he said. "Influence is power. Power we cannot allow." The room echoed with a single response. "Understood." Their ships lifted off in silence, vanishing into the void. Back in Kirill's ship, Ethan leaned back in his seat. He thought about the alien youths who had copied him, the rebels, who saw him as a symbol. Maybe he could use this fame to do something bigger. But before he could speak, a sharp alarm filled the cabin. Kirill's expression darkened. "They found us," she said, through the viewing window. Ethan saw 3 massive silver ships drop out of hyperspace, their lights like cold eyes staring straight at them. The chase had begun. The stars outside Kirill's ship blurred into long silver streaks as they sped through hyperspace. Ethan sat strapped into his seat, still feeling the adrenaline from the sudden pursuit. Kirill's hands moved quickly across the glowing controls, her silver eyes locked on the navigation screen. "They won't stop," she said quietly. "Not until they have you." Ethan forced a shaky laugh. "That's comforting," he muttered. For a few moments, there was only the hum of the engines. Then, without warning, the ship jolted violently. A deep metallic clang echoed through the hull. Ethan's seat harness tightened automatically. "What was that?" he asked, his voice sharp. Kirill's jaw tightened. "They've hit us with a gravlock," she said. "We've been pulled out of hyperspace." The stars snapped back into pinpoints outside the viewing window. 3 massive Zyran enforcer ships hovered like predators. Each one was a sleek spear of silver, with glowing red markings that pulsed like a heartbeat. From the center ship, a beam of pale light shot out and wrapped around Kirill's vessel like a chain. Ethan felt the floor tilt as they were dragged toward the largest ship, Kirill. Fingers flew over the controls. She tried to break the lock, but the beam only tightened. "They're jamming our systems," she hissed. Ethan looked toward her, panic rising. "Can't you jump away?" "Not when they have us like this," she replied. "The moment we try, the ship will tear apart." A voice filled the cabin, deep and mechanical. "This is Commander Vorik of the Zyran Enforcers. Surrender the human, and no harm will come to you." Kirill muttered something in her own language. Ethan didn't know the words, but the tone told him it wasn't polite. She opened the comm channel. "This human is under my protection," she said coldly. "If you want him, you'll have to board my ship." There was a long silence. Then, the enforcer beam released them. Ethan blinked in surprise. "That's it? They gave up?" Kirill shook her head. "No, they're coming." The lights in the cabin flickered. A sharp hiss filled the air as a small section of the wall melted away like liquid metal. Through the opening stepped 2 tall figures. In black armor, their helmets had no eyes, only a smooth, curved surface that reflected the room. Each carried a long weapon that hummed with dangerous energy. Ethan's instincts screamed at him to run, but there was nowhere to go. Kirill moved, first drawing a sleek silver blade from her hip. The first enforcer stepped forward, swinging his weapon toward her. She ducked low, slicing across his leg. the armor sparking under her strike. The second enforcer raised his weapon toward Ethan. Ethan froze, his heart pounding. In a flash, Carell was between them, blocking the strike. "Go!" she shouted. "Go where?" Ethan yelled back. She kicked one of the enforcers into the wall. The escape pod left corridor. Ethan ran, his feet pounding on the metal floor. The ship shook as another blast hit from outside. Behind him, he heard the clash of metal and the sharp crackle of energy weapons. He reached a round hatch at the end of the corridor. A glowing panel beside it showed the pod was ready. He slapped the control, and the hatch slid open with a hiss. But before he could climb in, a massive shadow loomed over him. An enforcer, bigger than the others, stepped into the corridor. His armor was black and gold, his shoulders wide, enough to block the entire passage. He reached out with a clawed hand and grabbed Ethan by the collar, lifting him off the floor as if he weighed nothing. Ethan struggled, kicking wildly, but it was useless. The enforcer's grip was like steel. "Carell." Voice echoed from behind. "Drop him." The enforcer turned just as Carell sprinted down the corridor, her blade glowing now with a fierce blue light. In one fluid motion, she leapt forward, twisting in the air, and sliced through the enforcer's arm. The clawed hand fell, releasing. "Ethan!" the enforcer roared, a deep metallic sound that shook the walls. Carell grabbed Ethan by the arm and shoved him into the escape pod. "Launch!" she ordered. "What about you?" Ethan shouted. "I'll find you," she said, slamming her hand on the pod controls. The hatch sealed. Ethan felt the sudden lurch as the pod shot away from Carell's ship. Through the small window, he saw her ship surrounded by the enforcers, beams of light and explosions filling the darkness. Then the pod spun, and the stars blurred once more. Ethan pressed his back against the seat, breathing hard, alone in the pod, drifting toward an unknown planet. He realized just how far from home he really was. The escape pod drifted through the cold darkness. Ethan's hands gripped the seat, his heart still pounding from the fight. The stars outside looked calm, but he knew somewhere behind him, Carell was still facing the enforcers. The pod's small screen blinked with a soft blue light, showing the countdown. Auto-landing sequence initiated. He didn't know where it was taking him, only that it was far from safe. Suddenly, a sharp flash lit up the window. A sleek silver shape darted into view. Carell's ship, battered, but still flying, it swerved past the pod. And for a moment, Ethan thought she was leaving him behind. Then her voice came through the pod's comm system. "Hold on, I'm docking you in," she said, mechanical arms extended from her ship, locking onto the pod and pulling it inside. The hatch opened with a hiss, and Carell stood there, breathing hard, her suit scorched from battle. "Thought I'd lost you," Ethan said, his voice half relief, half disbelief. "You almost did," she replied. "Now buckle in, they're not done yet." No sooner had he strapped into the co-pilot seat than the ship jolted violently. Carell's eyes scanned the sensors. "Two enforcer ships on our tail," she said, "and they've called for backup." Outside, beams of red light streaked past. Missing the hull by inches, Carell spun the ship sharply, diving into an asteroid field. Ethan's stomach lurched as massive rocks tumbled past them. One asteroid the size of a city blocked their path, forcing Carell to roll the ship sideways. At the last second, the enforcers followed, their weapons slicing through the dark. "They won't give up," Ethan said through gritted teeth. "They can't," Carell replied. "You're more dangerous to them alive than dead." "Dangerous?" He scoffed. "I'm just a performer." Carell gave him a sharp look. "You're a performer who just united half the galaxy's youth without trying. That scares them." As they weaved through the asteroids, a green icon blinked on the navigation screen. Carell tapped it, and a grainy face appeared. A young alien with smooth emerald skin and bright gold eyes. "Carell," the alien said quickly. "We've been waiting. You still have the human?" "Yes," Carell replied, "but we've got enforcers right behind us." "Bring him here," the alien urged. The rebel leaders want him to speak. It might turn the tide. Before Ethan could protest, Corel had already changed course. They burst out of the asteroid field into open space. Far ahead, Ethan saw a cluster of massive ships, each painted with bright symbols and patterns. They weren't warships, but they were fast. As Corel approached, the rebel fleet opened its docking bays. The enforcers closed in from behind, their weapons charging for a final strike. Corel slammed the controls, diving into the docking bay just as the doors sealed shut. The enforcer blasts hit the bay doors, but the rebel shields held. The ship settled onto the hangar floor. The moment the hatch opened, dozens of aliens surrounded them. Some tall and thin, some short and covered in fur. Every eye was fixed on Ethan. He shifted uncomfortably. Hi, he said. The young emerald-skinned alien stepped forward. You don't know it yet, she said, but you've become the voice of something bigger. They led him through winding corridors to a circular chamber where a hollow projector flickered to life. Across the galaxy, rebel cells tuned in, their faces appearing in small holographic windows. Ethan stood awkwardly in the center, Corel at his side. This is your chance, Corel whispered. Tell them why you won't be silenced. Ethan took a deep breath. He didn't think of himself as a leader, but he thought of the alien kids copying his style, the crowds watching him in secret, and for the first time, he realized they were risking as much as he was. He spoke simply. I'm just a human, he began. I didn't plan this, but I'm not going to apologize for being who I am. He looked at the holograms around him. If they can control what you watch, they can control who you are. His voice steadied. Don't let them. The rebels erupted into cheers. Messages began streaming in from across the galaxy, worlds pledging support, artists promising to join the cause. Somewhere, Ethan knew the enforcers were listening too. Corel touched his shoulder. They heard you, she said softly. But her eyes carried a warning. And now they'll come harder than ever. Asterisk, the rebel fleet floated in the shadow of a massive space station. Its surface glittered with gold and silver plating, and thousands of windows shone like tiny stars. This was the Grand Hall of the Intergalactic Council, the highest seat of power in the galaxy. Ethan stood at the viewing window of Corel's ship, staring at it in silence. It looks expensive, he muttered. Corel glanced at him, her silver eyes unreadable. It's more than expensive, it's dangerous, she said. Inside that station, every word you say will decide your future. Docking clamps locked onto their ship, pulling them toward a grand entry bay. Inside, armored guards stood in perfect rows, their armor polished to a mirror shine. Ethan followed Corel down the ramp, the weight of dozens of alien eyes on him. Some stared with curiosity, others with open dislike. The council chamber itself was a massive circular hall, its ceiling lost in shadows. At the center, a floating platform awaited them, surrounded by tiers of seats filled with council members from every corner of the galaxy. They looked down at Ethan like judges looking at a criminal. The head counselor, a tall being with golden horns and a robe of shifting colors, spoke first. Ethan Cole, he said, his voice echoing. You have been brought here to answer for the disturbance you have caused in over 100 star systems. Ethan swallowed hard. I didn't cause anything, he said. I just did my show. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. A thin, insect-like counselor leaned forward, her voice sharp. Your show has sparked rebellion, challenged authority, and inspired cultural contamination. Humans were never meant to influence our worlds this way. Corel stepped forward, her voice firm. He has done nothing but be himself. Is self-expression now a crime? The chamber erupted into arguments. Some counselors shouted for his immediate exile. Others demanded a vote. Ethan stood frozen, feeling like a small fish dropped into an ocean full of predators. Finally, the head counselor raised a hand, and silence fell. The vote will decide, he said. If found guilty, you will be returned to Earth and your image erased from all networks. As they prepared for the vote, the lights in the chamber flickered. A deep hum filled the air. Followed by a violent shake of the station, council members looked around in alarm. Corelli's eyes narrowed. "This isn't part of the trial," she said quietly. The main doors burst open, and a squad of armed figures stormed in. They weren't guards. They were the extremist faction Ethan had heard about, their leader. A towering alien with a jagged mask pointed at Ethan. "Kill the human, now." Chaos erupted. Council members fled to the upper levels while guards rushed to intercept the attackers. Ethan froze for a heartbeat, then saw the masked leader raise a weapon and aim it, not at him, but at the head counselor, without thinking. Ethan dove forward, slamming into the counselor and knocking him to the floor. The energy blast hit the wall behind them, exploding in a shower of sparks. Corell moved like lightning, her blade flashing as she cut down two attackers. Guards joined the fight, weapons blazing, within minutes. The extremists were either dead or captured, their leader dragged away in chains. Silence returned to the chamber. The head counselor stood, brushing dust from his ornate robe. He looked at Ethan with something that wasn't quite gratitude, but it wasn't anger either. "You saved my life," he said slowly. "Why?" Ethan shrugged, still catching his breath. "Because I'm not your enemy," he said. "I never was." The counselor turned to face the assembly. "This human came here accused of spreading chaos," he said, his voice carrying through the hall. "But today, he saved the life of this council, even knowing we might vote against him." He raised a long golden hand. "I call for a new vote, this time." The result was different, by a narrow margin. The council ruled in Ethan's favor. He would not be erased from the networks. He would be granted performer status recognized across multiple systems. Though under watch, some members still looked displeased, but others nodded in reluctant respect. As Ethan and Corell left the chamber, she allowed herself a small smile. "You handled yourself well," she said. Ethan grinned. "Yeah, I guess I'm more than just a performer now." Corell's expression grew serious. "Don't celebrate yet. They let you live for a reason, and it's not kindness." Outside, the station lights glittered like a city of stars, but in the shadows beyond, unseen eyes were already watching, waiting for their next move. The stars shimmered beyond the windows of the transport ship as it drifted through open space. Inside, Ethan sat in a wide lounge surrounded by curious alien faces. Some wanted to speak to him, others only stared. Word of the council's decision had already spread. The human performer who shocked the galaxy was now legal. His shows could be broadcast on thousands of worlds. And yet, Ethan felt the weight of what had happened still sitting on his chest. Corell entered the lounge, her steps silent as always. She handed him a small holo device. "What's this?" he asked. "Your first approved intergalactic broadcast." She replied. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "That was fast." "The galaxy moves quickly when it wants to," Corell said. "And right now, it wants you." Ethan tapped the device. A floating screen appeared in the air, showing alien cities, market squares, and crowded spaceports. Everywhere, massive holobanners of his face lit up the streets. Crowds gathered around public projectors to watch clips of his performances. Some aliens clapped and cheered, others simply stood in awe. On one world, a group of alien children copied his movements with laughter. On another, a street vendor sold masks shaped like his face. Ethan couldn't help but smile. "This is unreal," he said. Corell nodded. "It is also dangerous. The more famous you are, the more you will be targeted." Across the galaxy, the reaction was mixed. Rebel factions saw him as a symbol of freedom. Artists called him a bridge between worlds, but hardline traditionalists saw him as a cultural invader. In shadowed council halls, whispered conversation spoke of keeping him under control. In hidden bases, extremists sharpened their weapons, vowing to finish what they had started. For now, though, Ethan embraced the moment. He traveled from world to world, performing for crowds of thousands. On the ocean planet of Drelka, he sang. On a floating stage while bioluminescent whales swam beneath. On the crystal plains of Halora, his performance lit the ground with rainbow light. Everywhere he went, Kirill stayed close. Sometimes she was a manager, sometimes a bodyguard, always watching for the first sign of trouble. One night, after a show on the desert moon of Vera, Ethan stood alone on a balcony overlooking the dunes. The air was warm, and 2 moons hung low in the sky. For the first time in days, it was quiet. Kirill joined him, her gaze scanning the horizon. "You're thinking about Earth," she said. Ethan nodded. "Yeah. They don't even know what's happening out here." "They will," Kirill replied. "The council will decide when to tell them, or if." Ethan leaned on the railing. "Do you ever wonder why they really let me live?" he asked. Kirill's silence was answer enough. "Finally," she said. "Because you are useful to them, for now." Her words stayed with him as they boarded the ship the next day. The galaxy celebrated his name, but deep inside, he knew there were layers to this. He didn't understand. As the ship lifted off, Ethan glanced toward the corner of the hangar. A shadow moved there, tall, thin, wrapped in a dark cloak. He caught the faint glint of alien eyes watching him before the figure melted back into the darkness. Hours later, in a dimly lit chamber somewhere far away, that same shadowy figure spoke into a communicator. "The human is doing exactly what they hoped." The voice hissed. Another voice replied, low and dangerous. "Good. Let him shine. Let him think. He is free." There was a pause, then a whisper that seemed to chill the air. "He doesn't know the real reason we let him live." Yet, back on the ship, Ethan sat in the pilot's seat beside Kirill. He looked out at the endless stars, feeling both powerful and small. Somewhere out there, enemies were watching. Somewhere out there, friends he didn't know yet were waiting. And somewhere deep inside, a voice told him that this was only the beginning of something far bigger than himself. Kirill adjusted the controls, guiding the ship into hyperspace. The stars stretched into silver lines. Ethan leaned back, a half smile on his face. "All right," he murmured. "Let's see how far this goes." And with that, the galaxy's first human star disappeared into the light. Not knowing the dark truth that followed close behind,